everybody, and welcome to today's video. And in today's video, I'll be discussing the 10 or the what will likely be the 10 most competitive Senate races in the 2022 Senate elections next year. It's a bit strange because there are some states like Wisconsin, for example, that we know are probably already going to be on here. But then there are other states like Iowa and Missouri where the competitiveness is kind of debated. Spoiler alert: one of those is on here, one of them isn't. I'm gonna started out. I'm gonna start from the farthest to the west, I guess. Or actually, I'm just gonna start with Nevada. Farthest to west is actually Alaska, which is on here. Which I'm gonna discuss in a minute, or whatever whenever I'm done discussing Nevada, I guess. But in Nevada, I mean, it's obviously gonna be pretty competitive. I think that Catherine Cortez Masto is going to probably do better in rural areas, especially without Trump on the ballot. Or at least we won't see the GOP turning out as many rural voters. But I think we will likely see her probably narrowly carry Washoe this time. But it will still likely be one of the most competitive seats in 2022. Next up is Alaska. I mean, like, Murkowski, I think, carried it by, I think it was just safe. Actually, it might have been just likely. I mean, like, with ranked choice, she's probably going to do really bad with Republicans, but do very well with independents and get enough Democratic second and third choices that she almost will probably carry it, but it'll still likely be pretty competitive. Next up is Arizona. I mean, like, yes, of course this is going to be competitive. Mark Kelly won by, I believe, 2.4%. So obviously this is probably going to be pretty competitive. Without Trump on the ballot, it'll probably shift to the left, especially considering the fact that Mark Kelly is now an incumbent. I see him doing well enough in the suburbs, and I see the GOP nominating a Trumpist, which is going to hurt them in the suburbs. But still, it'll likely be one of the most competitive seats. I mean, like, by nature, I don't really know that there's going to be an election where Arizona is not competitive, and if it is not competitive, it'll probably be going to the GOP. Like Doug Ducey in 2018. Like, it was fairly competitive. Not really. It was like maybe, might have been likely, might have been safe. I think it was like online, it was like 15-ish. The next one is the state of Wisconsin. Now, in Wisconsin, by the way, Missouri is on here, so Iowa isn't, but I'm just going to do Wisconsin first. In Wisconsin, I mean, like, obviously it's going to be incredibly competitive. Biden and Trump both carried it by tilt margins. But I think we're going to probably see Sarah Godlewski win it. But, I mean, like, it's still going to be a very competitive seat. Ron Johnson and Godlewski, it's probably going to be a pretty interesting matchup. Johnson doesn't have a whole lot of appeal to the working class, not a whole lot of appeal to the suburbs. He has alright rural appeal. But Godlewski has pretty decent appeal to the working class, pretty decent appeal to the suburbs. It would make sense if she were to actually carry it by like 1 or 2%. But it will still probably be one of the most competitive seats. Also, Johnson still has the incumbency. We could see him do all right in the wild counties. I mean, it's not as if he's gonna like do like super well, but he's gonna do all right enough probably in the wild counties and do well enough with the working class and get enough rural turnout to the point where he might narrowly carry it. If he's not the GOP and nominee, then we could see it get even more competitive. This will definitely be maybe the most competitive seat in 2024 or 2022. Definitely one to keep your eye on. The next one is in Missouri. I am predicting a much more competitive Missouri than most people. For whatever reason, most people on here seem to predict Missouri, at least in 2022, significantly different. I mean, in fact, UEP, who I usually agree with, made a video about why Missouri won't be competitive. I do believe that it will probably be competitive. Lucas Kuntz is probably the closest thing the Democrats are going to get, or one of the closest things the Democrats are going to get to Jason Kander. Eric Greitens is an awful nominee. Honestly, even with Greitens, it's probably still going to be like only like R plus 10 at best. Maybe R plus 12 or R plus 13. But he's not a very good candidate. But Lucas Kuntz is a very, very good candidate. With these two, it will probably be a very competitive race. It'll probably be closer than Alaska. Could be closer than Arizona. So that is definitely a race where I tend to I tend to favor the Democrats more in this race than most people. It's weird because in Missouri I tend to I favor the Democratic nominee more, or I give him a better chance. But in New Hampshire I favor Sununu more. I say favor. I over or I ask I. I'm trying to find a good way to say this because it's not as if I like favor these people more. I mean, like I may, but it's that it's that I'm like favor. I say favor. I not necessarily favor. Like obviously, I do have my own political beliefs, so I don't really factor it in, and especially considering the fact that I overestimate both Kuntz and Sununu. It's just a bit strange, but I think at this point, um, we're probably gonna see these nominations do better. I'm trying to find a good way to say it. I don't want to say overestimate because we don't really know where they are. Like if after the election, I can say whether I overestimated or whatever. Right now, I mean, like it's. I just tend to, I guess, predict them to the left in Missouri and to the right in New Hampshire. Um, or to the right and left of where the rest of the community stands. I guess it's a bit strange. But for whatever reason, I do tend to um I tend to think that Kuntz is a better nominee in or I tend to think that Kuntz will do better in Missouri than most people do. But I mean, like looking at Missouri, I just think that he has enough appeal to candor voters, whereas Greetings doesn't. Honestly, if Trump wasn't on the ballot in 2016, we may see or Jason Kander may be a Democratic senator from Missouri right now. Like, Trump may have carried, honestly, probably did carry Roy Blunt to victory in Missouri. But we can. I've already made a video on Missouri, but once again, this is an unpopular take in Missouri. But it is a take that I have, obviously. And I'm just gonna go throw it in there because it probably will be fairly competitive. Next state is Ohio. This is another one. It's not like Missouri and New Hampshire levels of unpopular take, but it's not exactly a popular take. My take in Ohio, I just think that Tim Ryan is such a strong nominee. I think he has loads of appeal to the working class, and I think has enough appeal to Sherrod Brown voters that may have voted for Trump, and he'll do well enough with the black vote and do well enough in all these bigger cities to the point where he probably will be able to do very well. Like, I don't necessarily know that he'd win. If the GOP nominate establishmentarian nominee, Tim Ryan might actually win the seat. I know it seems like a stretch, but Tim Ryan, I think, is definitely a very strong candidate. For the next state, it is the state of Georgia. In Georgia, I mean, like, I see Warnock obviously winning. I don't know that he was going to lose the seat, but I do think it's going to be competitive regardless. Herschel Walker is an all-right nominee. He probably has more appeal in the suburbs than Trump. He won't have the same rural appeal, though. But regardless, it's not going to be able to get out of... It's not going to be, like, D+4, probably. What should be D+4? I don't want to have someone quote me on this in a year and a half. Unless it isn't D+4, then yeah, go for it. But, I see it being narrow enough, and it's still a very competitive state to the point where it will probably be one of the 10 most competitive races. Next one is in the state of Pennsylvania. So in Pennsylvania, I mean, Fetterman is a fairly strong nominee. He has enough appeal to the working class. I don't see him being great for the black vote. But he has enough working class appeal, to be able to do it. Whereas Ryan Costello, even if I don't even know if he's actually run, but, he is an alright candidate in the suburbs. He has hardly any appeal, though, to the working class. I see Fetterman's main problem being with, doing well enough in Philly and doing well enough with the black vote, but I see him turning out enough black voters regardless. I see Democratic efforts in the state being enough, especially with also his appeal to the white working class, being enough to get him a victory in the state. But still, it'll still be very competitive. I mean, like, it really depends. If the GOP nominated a Trumpist against Fetterman, if there's a nominated Trumpist against, like, Biden in the state, I would say it goes to Biden. But if there's a nominated Trumpist, I see Fetterman having enough trouble. I see the Trumpist getting enough working class appeal, and him and Fetterman struggling enough in Philly to the point where it could actually be a Republican hold. I don't know that it would be, but it is still definitely a possibility. And the next state, this is one that we probably, or most of us probably expected. It is North Carolina. In North Carolina, I mean, Cherry Beasley is, yes, a very good nominee. Um, I mean, there's a lot of uncertainty surrounding the race, depending on who the nominees are going to be. Ted Budd, Mark Walker, Pat McCrory seems to be the favorite for the GOP for the Democrats. I mean, I guess it's essentially probably going to be Cherry Beasley at this point. Jeff Jackson could potentially eke out a win. I doubt it though. But Beasley likely will be the nominee. She has enough appeal to the black vote. She's going to do well enough in the suburbs to the point where a Trumpist against Beasley, or by a Trumpist I basically mean McCrory, probably won't win the race. But regardless, it'll still be a competitive seat. It really does depend on the nominees. Either way, it'll probably still be a tilt margin for each, or depending on who wins there. And then the final seat, this is hard between Florida and New Hampshire, but it is New Hampshire. I mean, like, Sununu probably will only carry it by 7-ish. Once again, I tend to, I'm predicting Missouri to the left of where everyone else seems to be predicting it, but I'm predicting New Hampshire to the right, actually. I see Sununu probably carrying it by around 7. He's just so popular, that he'd be able to do it. But at this point, it's kind of just that Florida. In Florida, Marco Rubio, like, Val Demings isn't exactly made for the state of Florida, but Marco Rubio isn't, gonna lose, obviously. It doesn't really matter who the nominee is, but, he's probably still gonna be able to carry it by 7 or 8%, whereas Sununu probably only carries it by, 7-6%. So I'm gonna say that New Hampshire will probably be more competitive than Florida. Actually, honestly, Florida should be in here and Alaska shouldn't be. Because it's gonna be more competitive than Alaska probably. But yeah, thank you guys so much for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, please leave a like below. Stay tuned for my next video tomorrow. Subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. Please comment your suggestions down below, and I'll see you all tomorrow. Bye.